Have you seen Jim Carrey paints? Yeah, he's pretty good too. Oh, is he? Oh, is he? What, did you go to one wine and paint class and now you're a fucking art critic? Get away from me, mom.
Hey guys, welcome to Waiting to Dry. It's the podcast where you get to know your favorite artists so you don't have to read their artist statement that the artist probably didn't even want to write anyway. So, my name is Sergio Lopez.
I'm Josh Lawyer.
And it's just us two in the mothership this time.
And the guest today is...
Mellow? No.
Place an imaginary friend here.
Yep.
That was a horrible
The guest
delivery.
is you, the listener.
Exactly. Yeah. Nice. And yeah, so here we are.
Yeah.
We've been wanting to do this for a while.
Yeah. It was actually a thing where we were going to, I think in the beginning we were talking about we were just going to do one of these like this once a month. I think we might still do that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're still figuring things out, but we definitely want to come back and just talk about ourselves because we hate talking about other people.
Yeah. It's like, all right, you went to art school. You liked it. You hated it.
Yeah. Yeah,
get on with it.
But yeah, and I think another thing is with like our guest as of right now, we're kind of in like interviewer mode.
Mm-hmm.
And our whole goal we've talked about before is to have just like a relaxed conversation and kind of just like how we would any like hangout we would have with artists.
Right.
But we kind of have been committed to introducing our guests to these people first.
Yeah. And a lot of the times it's like one of us doesn't know the other artist very well either. So
yeah.
It serves as a good way for the other person to get to know them too.
Yeah.
So it helps in that way. I mean, they've all been like awesome episodes for that, but it's also like we were talking about it before that like, to me, I feel like we were kind of losing a little bit of the dynamic between myself and Josh. So it's good to get like that part of the podcast into it again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Joshua Mays episode, I think you've talked more now than you have in that whole episode.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it yeah, so this is cool. But yeah. So
yeah. We're just kind of winging it this one. I mean, we got things to talk about, but yeah, just getting back into being comfortable with just bullshitting on the microphone.
But yeah, have you been up to anything new, Sergio?
Yeah, I've had like a bunch of painting projects I've been working on lately.
Nice.
I've been doing some things lately about art that deals with the wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, like first when I was after the fires came, like I mean, most of us were in a funk for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so
we've already kind of explained the wildfires.
Yeah. In the first episode we talked about it, but yeah, I mean, if people don't remember, this was in one of the areas back last year during the California wildfires that was affected the most. Like, there's still a lot of damage out. If you look in the hills around Santa Rosa, you still see a lot of it. And it's actually part of what I wanted to kind of get into with the project I'm working on right now. I have a few different things going on, but one of them was that when I first wanted to go out there to paint and like, because I knew people, I had a friend of mine who was going out there to do like some plein air painting of some of the destruction out there. Uh-huh. And so I thought, like, what would that be like if I went out there to try and do that? But it was just too close to home for me. Like, right. It was just like too emotionally, it was too much for me to be out there. Like, even just driving through, like one time I went through Highway 12 between Sonoma and Santa Rosa. Mm-hmm. And you saw like all the destruction because it was right off of the highway right there. Like, you just saw the burnt out houses,
right?
Houses that were all that was left was their brick chimney. So it's like, man, that was heavy.
Right.
So
for sure.
yeah, and then so now that it's springtime, it's interesting to see how the earth is kind of recovering from all that. Like how there's like the grass is all green around here now. Like if people aren't familiar with how Santa Rosa is, like there's like kind of like for me 2 seasons around here. It's either green or brown. So right now we're kind of in our green season because it's raining, and it doesn't ever rain here in the summer or hardly anything at all. So all the color or all the green and flowers and stuff are usually what bloom around this time of the year. So right now is a good time, like just in general for people who do plein air to go out there and paint. But right now it's super interesting to me because of all the way that things are growing back. Like you're seeing all these weird ass colors in the hills and all the trees that are still standing, but they're all damaged. So you get all these crazy like purplish, brownish hues and tones to everything.
Right.
And you still see on a lot of the trees and the bark, all the charred areas of it.
Right.
It's just stuff that you'll probably never see again. Well, hopefully not ever see again around here. And it's just like these interesting colors. And I just thought like, man, there's something beautiful to this destruction that if you're in the right mind state to look at it in that way, and just there's something to be said artistically about it. So
Yeah.
I've been doing this little series of landscape paintings of certain areas where I'm approaching them like a plein air painter would, like all the typical like, you know, color and composition considerations.
Just a quick heads up. I mean, assuming not everyone has listened to God, I'm forgetting his name. Your buddy
Who, Judson?
Judson.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's where we kind of went into plein air stuff.
Oh right,
But
yeah,
just
yeah.
quick heads up. Anyone listening confused with the term?
Oh yeah, yeah. I could just say that real quick. It's just a fancy French term for painting outdoors, basically. Is what it breaks down to. But yeah, like landscape painters, for the most part, kind of. I mean, they do them both, but a lot of landscape painters break it down between like a studio landscape or a plein air landscape.
Right.
And so yeah, you
can do like cityscapes as well, right?
Yeah, and it all kind of goes under the same umbrella. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So haven't actually done a lot of painting outdoors recently. I thought I was going to try and do them all outdoors, but it's been raining a lot around here. So, yeah, I've been just working on a bunch of those in my studio right now. So that's the main thing I've been working on. And I also have this other, for this other show that I do here at a gallery that I show out locally. It's called Christopher Queen Gallery, and they do a lot of their work. That's what they mostly show are early California artists. So that's like 1890s through like the 1920s. So like one part of the gallery is that they just show that exclusively, and the other is contemporary artists that kind of skew their work a little bit more like influenced by that kind of work. So one of the they always do like these sort of theme shows where, and then one of them is where you decorate the frame yourself, or you do something interesting with the frame. So I've been working on this painting of I really like panoramic scenes where you see a lot of the atmosphere in the air, and things kind of as they recede, they kind of the values kind of compress down and get lighter, so it gives it this atmospheric effect. And that's just always something that I've been really interested in painting. Like even when I go do plein air paintings, I like setting up vistas and looking outdoors.
Slow down. Okay. So go back to that.
Yeah.
I was a little confused by what you meant by that. So the when you said you like to do panoramics because it's compressed and you see the atmosphere, what do you mean by that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the atmospheric distance, like when you go up on top of a hill and you look out, and you at the further out you look, the more you see the air.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah. When like hills get lighter and like,
right, yeah, they get bluer,
right.
or
you see the atmosphere. Yeah,
right,
okay.
yeah. So I really like to paint that.
And how does that apply to panoramic?
Just because when you're up on a hill like that.
I see. You're able to kind of view your entire surroundings.
Right, yeah.
Okay, like almost a 360 view instead of a.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm doing like a long horizontal painting of that right now. And went up to the Oakland Hills and took a bunch of photos, and so I'm doing like a sort of a Bay Area painting.
Nice.
And then so for the frames, I'm putting like things in the frame. Like I'd been doing these sketches of mountain lions and bears and stuff. And I just thought like the idea behind that was like, so in the old days, you know, it was just more animals and things, and like the bears and the mountain lions were like the top of the food chain. And then now
speak for yourself.
Yeah. And so now like the actual painting is what we look at today, and it's just the contrast between that.
I believe that the Tongan people were always top of the food chain. I don't think they were ever below a bear.
The Tongans that populated the Oakland Hills back in the day.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's pretty much a rundown of what I'm working on right now. I have other things going on, but yeah.
Nice. It's kind of cool to think about the fire almost dating this section of artwork as well, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
It's kind of like wine, you know, when they have big fires or big things that damage the grapes, you end up getting a very distinct year.
Yeah.
And in the plein air world, it's probably where it's more of a consistency to go to certain areas and you do your take of that spot.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you get something that's so dramatic like this fire, it ends up putting its own stamp on your work as well.
Yeah.
Just kind of cool to think about. Oh, well, that's cool. I mean,
yeah.
Nice. So when's that show supposed to happen?
The one that I'm doing, the one with the paintings is, or the ones of the fire is, it's for this show, this local show, at the Arlene Francis Center. Do you know about that place?
Arlene Francis Center.
Yeah.
Is it like a brick building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's right downtown, and they do.
Yeah,
they do a lot of shows there of local musicians and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And a friend of mine, or this person, it's an artist I know through our friend Jason Avery.
Mm-hmm. I think I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Episode, was it
3? Yeah.
And
we need a repeat of that one. The audio was horrific.
Yeah, all of our first ones, I go back and listen to them, and they're like, oh man.
Yeah, we need a especially Jason's. I think I blame myself for that when I was pretty drunk and not that good at keeping my face in the right spot for the mic.
Yeah, it was hard to tell too. Like we just didn't know what we were supposed to sound like in the headphones. It's like, oh, as long as you hear us at all, it's like we think that we're doing all right. But yeah,
that's one of the cool things about learning this podcast business is now that I listen to other podcasts, I'm like, ooh, their audio is horrific.
Yeah, I've listened to some where it's like you guys have like supposedly a sound guy working on it, and it still doesn't sound great.
Yeah, or even a high budget. I was listening to who was it? Like maybe it was New York Times. I listened to that's how I consume my news as well as through podcast.
Yeah.
And someone was talking, and I was like, how is this? You guys, it might have been NPR or New York Times or any liberal media.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a liberal media shill or something.
Fake news.
But yeah.
Let's see, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the friend of Jason's, I met through him. She's putting together this little benefit show I think a lot of the proceeds are going to the Santa Rosa or Sonoma County volunteer firefighters.
Nice.
So yeah, a lot of us are doing work that's sort of inspired by how we dealt with the fire.
For sure.
So
yeah, that was one of the craziest parts of the fire, I think. I mean, the fire alone and the air quality being shit was horrific, but the like how normal it is to see just like 30, not 30, but like 10, maybe like 8 fire trucks just drive by you
Oh yeah.
at all times, and like rows of police, like 10 police cars just
no.
are always around you. And you know, when you're used to driving around police, you're like, oh, please don't pull me over, please. You know, like no matter, even if you didn't do anything wrong, in my mind, I just instinctually get like, uh-oh,
Right,
did I
yeah.
do something? But when that happened, you almost just have this like, all right, like you just get, it just becomes a normal thing of just them flying down with sirens running and all that kind of thing.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's like,
totally.
just becomes normal for a while. So that's cool that they're supporting the fire department, because they definitely work their ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard some like random conspiracy theories during that time about them.
God, yeah.
I was like, relax. No one is trying to like steal your property.
I was thinking about something else, like even more crackpot.
But it was based around the fire department.
Oh, really?
Fire department's in on it. I'm like,
Oh, really? Oh,
chill.
Jesus. I hear that one, but yeah. That's crazy.
It's whatever. But yeah, that's cool. So that's wait. What
that's April 7th, I believe.
Nice.
Whatever that Saturday of that weekend is. So yeah,
you got a little bit of time. Have you?
Yeah, there. I have
far in that work.
I have most of them half done, and then I still have a couple that I need to actually start. But yeah, that's probably what I'm going to be end up working on most this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I will say is, when you first start showing work or whatever, for all you artists wondering this, you get in this weird pattern where you commit to an art show and it's months in advance, and you think you have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And then
Oh my God.
time shortens up, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I guess sleep isn't an option anymore. And that becomes the case for a while. At least for me, and a lot of my friends I've talked to. I even heard a podcast, I think by TED Talk or some shit like that, and they were talking about artists and how they procrastinate and how it kind of is a part of being a creative. I don't know how true that is for everyone, but it hit home to me at least a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I definitely enjoy not having to rush at the end.
Yeah.
I think there is this happy medium where I try to plan for the rush at the end, even though I'm painting consistently. So at the end, even though I'm rushing, I'm like, I'm not freaking out rushing. I could still sleep.
Yeah.
That's the good part.
Yeah, I've pretty much gotten to that point myself. Like, I know kind of more or less how many hours a week I can feasibly dedicate to working on stuff. So these days I'm trying hard not to overcommit to a whole bunch.
Yeah, me too.
Because I just know how it gets at the end. But yeah, it doesn't matter for me. No matter how much I try to pace myself, I'm always rushing at the end of a deadline.
So have you been saying no more recently?
I think they haven't been reaching out to me as much lately because I said no a lot before.
See, that's one thing I was wondering, because I've been trying to say no this year as much as possible, because I'm just trying out something new, just trying to take my time on paintings, even though I'm still going to be rushing at the end. At least I'm taking my time with the paintings I'm doing and trying to create the best paintings I can with the amount of time I think I should have to do a painting before it becomes almost unworth it to do it anymore. Like taking a year to paint a painting. Yeah. That ends up being like, well, then what do you charge for that? Like, do I do a year's wage?
Yeah.
So,
depends on the size, I guess.
Yeah. But even, so it's that whole idea of like, how much time can I commit before it just ends up being no way I can make money off of this painting by how much time, or I can't make enough money off this painting to survive or whatever from that. I mean, I do have a job, so I don't really have to worry about that, but that's also a luxury in that I can say no as much as I want because I don't have to rely on that. But
yeah, that's tricky because like nothing's a given and when it comes to selling art.
Yeah, but that was I was going to say. Do you think that galleries, they get offended if you say no?
That's a good question. I think maybe, I mean, I'd have to ask a gallery owner, but yeah, I think it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I tried to say no as politely as possible.
Yeah.
Like I said no recently to a gallery and they didn't respond back with like, oh, thank you for responding or any. They just dead like.
Was it a gallery you have a relationship with before?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they asked me if I could be a part of a show. And
Is it a group show though?
It was a 4-person show.
Oh, okay.
And it was the same like month I'm doing a 4-person show for Wonderland.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm sorry, I already committed to this.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would want that either. Like you don't want me to have 2 shows in the same city of body of work. And that would reduce the quality of the show and all that thing, you know, and you're like,
right.
So I tried to say like, oh, I already committed to the show, but like, thank you so much for reaching out to me and all this stuff. And then I got like dead air and I was like, I wonder like if people get like their ego kind of hurt when you say no to them about stuff like that.
Oh, I think at this, or if it's a legit gallery, they probably heard that a million times already before. So that's probably part of the price of doing business, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't get everybody you want all the time.
Yeah, I think
as far as artists go.
It's the dead air that always, it's like when you text someone and they don't text you back and you're like, are you mad at me?
Yeah.
And they're like, I was sleeping. What happened?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we're in the weird predicament now where we're artists, but we have to ask artists to be a part of our podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a fun experiment to be a part of.
Yeah.
And kind of, you do get this perspective of galleries in a way, where you're...
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not the same, and we're not really, trying to, I don't know, sell artwork for... I mean, I don't know, it's weird. We're just, but it is weird reaching out to artists and being I don't know, the one who has to holler at the girl.
Yeah, totally.
Because we're so used to being artists and being like, who, me?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's cool. So that's all Plein Air stuff, though, right? That you're doing for the.
Well, it's all landscape at least, yeah. But yeah, I have. Let's see. Do I have any figurative stuff going on? I have something else I'm working on with the. Started dealing with the fire too. That I don't really have it all fleshed out yet, but I'll probably in a future episode get into it more when I.
Is that the abstract kind of stuff?
Oh no, it's totally different. It's more of a sort of, I guess you'd call it narrative piece. Not really, but it's more of a thematic piece.
You're not allowed to do that, Sergio.
I'm not. I made my case on this.
Yeah. Well, you've decided you can't be a flip-flopper nowadays. Yeah. Well, I mean, you are working on that, or you are like developing that kind of like abstract /
Oh, right. Yeah.
with body parts and and abstract shapes and cool darkness to it. Now as well, right?
Yeah. That's one of those things where it's like on the back burner because it is like personal project. And I don't really have any plans on showing it anywhere unless a gallery reaches out to me and really likes it once I finally put it up. But it's just one of those things where it's where I'm trying to just do something for myself that's not like I don't have plans on trying to like be like, please like it sort of stuff. Right. How you usually have to kind of think about your stuff that you put out in galleries.
Yeah, that's tough. I think because for me, a couple years ago, I picked up oil painting again after not touching it for like 9 years or something like that.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And when I touched it, I touched it for like a month, and I was like, that was cool. And when I did so, I felt like it was not necessarily a start over again. It's not like I was like training wheeling it up, but there was definitely this feeling of...
How long did you do it when you were doing it like that?
For like a month.
Oh, okay. I mean, but before that, when you said that you didn't touch it for for 9 years, did you say? Yeah. How long were you doing it when you were doing that?
9 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a month.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, like I tried it out and I was like, that was cool. I like that.
Oh, okay. I was kind of confused. I think I just heard you wrong. Like, I thought you like waited 9 years and then did it for a month and we're like, that's cool.
No, I'm doing it. I mean, I paint with oil paints primarily now.
Yeah, okay.
But I developed this style, was like mixed medium before this, and it's much more like, like kind of like hard edges and stuff like that, like mucha and that kind of like inspiration.
Right, yeah.
And developing it kind of in that way where it's like a lot of flat spots and a lot of, like the hair was always just a flat color.
Right.
And that kind of thing. And then when I was transitioning to oil paints, I definitely felt a lack of interest from galleries and things like that, like and I was like blatantly told from galleries like, oh yeah, like we really like your old stuff.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm doing this now and I'm just going to develop what I'm doing. And, and then I think me trying to figure out like my footing, I didn't necessarily hate my old style. I just felt like there was limitations to what I did. Like I kind of pigeonholed myself to like do only a certain amount of stuff before I couldn't do, before it didn't work. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like there was some things where, putting maybe a landscape in the background or something like that wouldn't necessarily be possible with that style, or I don't think it would be. I tried it out and I never thought it worked that well.
Okay.
Or just things like that where, so I that's kind of what made my decision to go the oil paint direction. And I think I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm pulling some stuff from my old stuff, but not necessarily 100%. And I think I'm in a good spot, and I think interest is kind of coming back to, gallery showing my work more.
Oh, okay.
It's been like one of the funnest things I've done in a long time. I think one thing when you do something for so long, you kind of get comfortable and almost bored of what you're doing. Oh yeah. And then just being able to just go like, fuck this, I'm going to do this. Right. I do have like shout out to Wonderland SF. They're like they're my favorite gallery to work with. And I just like love the owner, and she just always has my back. So, when I was doing what I was doing, she was always like, yeah, like, let's show you, like bring your stuff. And, and that's always like a comforting feeling, especially if you're trying to do something new as an artist, to have like a gallery that's willing to be like, we don't give a fuck what you're doing. We're friends, and we support you, and you figure it out, and we trust you as an artist, which I think is probably a good way galleries should run. It's instead of being like the what's new and what's hip and what's cool. Right. I think there's something, I mean, that's also good, but building these relationships with galleries seems to be at least the galleries I would want to work with more than anything. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about when you were saying that with galleries letting you, like, they just like you as a artist, and they're happy to show basically whatever you do, kind of. I mean, within reason, of course, but that's kind of when I do like those group shows like that, is when I test out the waters as far as new series or concept or things that I'm working on. And yeah, it's nice to have that sort of I guess venue to show that kind of work if the gallery believes in you enough.
Yeah, I think so. So now that you're doing like this abstract stuff that's personal to you, do you feel like you're kind of given the venue to show that off?
Well, I just haven't really for that concept in particular. The only time I've even shown any of that stuff so far is on my Instagram stories.
Right. And how's the feedback on that?
Actually pretty good, as far as like There's some people like my buddy Anton. I think he really likes it because he kind of went kind of the same way that I went, where he was doing a lot more realistic work, and now he's doing these really super chunky, pretty much abstract plein air landscapes. And so he got to a point where he didn't have to worry about relying on his art for money. So he gets to do whatever he wants. And he kind of always wanted to veer toward a more abstract method of working. And now he doesn't have to worry about what sells. He could just paint how he wants.
So
so he was into it because he's kind of into abstract stuff. And there's been other people who've like hit me up, like sent me messages. I think Jason Avery's another. Jason Avery's become the new Monty guy. He's getting shouted out a bunch.
For Anton, did that lead to more success or?
I think it led to more personal happiness.
Okay.
I don't know how much he's showing his work anymore because I don't know. He's in Portland, and the Portland art scene's kind of weird up there, where a lot of people in Portland show outside of Portland because there's not much of an art market up there. And he's had some galleries that have been galleries that really like his work no matter what he does, but then they fold because it's a tough market up there.
Right. Huh.
And and so I've gotten a decent amount of feedback from people.
I really like this stuff. That's kind of why I want to bring it up. Is I'm always like because I really like your Painted Roses girls, but I think they've almost run the course where I'm like, I want to see what you do. I'm very curious to see the next steps you take.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe you have more that you want to explore in that realm.
Kind of. There's things I want to do within the theme of girls and flowers, but I don't necessarily want to do the wallpaper style stuff all the time anymore. Right. And it's just a matter of like the things I want to do take more sort of a setup and like I have like ideas for props I want to get and stuff like that for things I want to do with it. But it's just when you doing everything else, all that just kind of gets put aside for a while. It's just, and it's also like right now I'm just trying to figure out where the next sale is coming from. It's tough right now to really get too into it. But right now I'm also working at a framing shop, and that covers just enough to not worry about rent at my studio. So that actually helps a lot. I'm not like super stressed out about it. So other than the things I'm already committed to, as soon as I get done with that, I pull out the paintings again and start working on them more. And the thing I like about that is because I get to do all this stuff that I would never get to do with the Painted Roses things. Like I'm doing all these different things, like sanding the painting down and coming in and like almost like gouging out parts of the thick paint that I already put down just to see what happens. Because like I don't know if you paint on like a glass palette or something like that, or what do you paint on? Yeah. Okay. A while ago I switched to a wooden palette just because it's one of the ones where you hold in your hand and
Bob Ross it up.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to be like, if you really want it to like stay pristine, you have to be like really diligent about cleaning it every time after you finish painting. And I just don't work that way at all. Like
with the wooden palette?
Yeah. Otherwise, like when it dries, it's there. Right. And after a while, you just basically just have to go and sand it down.
Right. I've worked on a wooden palette before.
Well, with oil?
Just wood in general. I would just get a piece of wood and paint using that for a long time, and then and then just when it got kind of too thick, I would just throw it away and chop a new piece up. Just a new like 1/4-inch panel of wood, and just do a square that I could hold in my hand easily. And
did you drill a little hole for your thumb to go in or anything?
No, I never got that. I don't even. Does that make it comfortable? I guess.
Because what happens to you, the weight of the palette rests on your forearm,
Yeah, I've got these monster claws for hands.
Yes,
so
you hold it like a pizza.
So I didn't even notice it. My cousin Easel.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, about the palette. What happens when you let the paint just cake up on a palette like that? After a while, you just throw in the towel and you just have to like sand it down,
right.
or take a palette knife and just scrape it off in that way. But what happens when you sand it, you get all these really cool marbling textures to it that you can only build up after like layers and layers of paint mixtures. And it's like impossible to like manufacture that. Like even like doing it handmade, you have to do it it just has to be something you build up over time.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been doing in the abstract stuff is trying to like get some sort of buildup of layers over time. So that's why I don't really mind it like taking a back burner and coming back to it and put another layer over it when I get around to it, because it lets itself sort of age in that way.
There's other certain things that happen, because I've seen that before and I think it's awesome. But there's like a ton of random things that happen when you create art that are like extra things that I'm always like, how do I create that on my painting?
Right.
Like like sometimes I'll see people with like where they mount their painting onto a wall and they paint on like a wall easel, or just I don't know how they do it. I've never done it before.
Yeah.
But there'll be like splashes of paint like right below the painting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fucking such good. Like that's so good.
Yeah.
And
I think Kim Kogan was a guy who really took advantage of those drips and stuff.
Oh, has he used those before?
Yeah, I don't know if he's doing as much anymore, but some of his work, early work, was like really drippy.
Because I've always wondered like if you could make a painting and then put it underneath the painting and all like the random splashes would like hit that painting.
Oh yeah.
And
I've never seen anybody try that.
It's kind of like interacting with each other in a way.
Yeah.
I've never actually done it because I'm too afraid to fuck up my painting.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe one day, or whoever's out there, please go try it and let me know how it works.
Yeah. One of the things about doing the semi-abstract stuff is trying to figure out where you actually go in and try to make it look like something.
Right. Yeah.
Or do I just leave it as is? I've been trying both approaches, and they just become like composition studies after a while. But I've found that I think it's just like how I look at art is like there needs to be something like really rendered out in it and like something recognizable for me.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
I don't do I do somewhat abstract-y backgrounds, but there always has to be like something rendered. I mean, I just love rendering stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
So it's like I want to render stuff out. I also want to like fuck around and play around with textures and and paint in a abstract type of way that's a little less me concentrating and focusing on certain things and just kind of enjoying like the movements and happy accidents and all that good stuff. Right,
for sure. Yeah, I guess I will put up some of these paintings so people know what the fuck we're even talking about with my work. But yeah, one of the things that
they look kind of like orgies in the dark.
Yeah, I guess they do. Yeah, the way that I came up with the reference for it, because I'm still like pretty closely working with the photos. It's just the photos look all crazy as fuck. But I just overlaid a bunch of a model just posing in all these different ways. Like I just had them do all these crazy things, like climbing all over my furniture in my studio and stuff, and doing all these
act
weird
like
things.
Lion.
Yeah, exactly. More fierce. And so yeah, it's just an overlay of a bunch of things. I would go in Photoshop. I just lay every pose as a layer and just go in and like fuck up every layer a little bit and erase it out or put like new color on top of it and stuff.
Right.
It just over time, it's kind of like what I'm doing with the paint itself. Just over time, layers of weird stuff start happening in it.
Right.
And then you go in there and just tighten it up to make it look like an interesting abstract composition. But the reason I started working with that in the first place was after painting as long as I have been, like one of the things I just really like about painting is rendering form. And when and one of the things is like, what happens when I just strip away almost all recognizable things and just make the paintings about form as a concept. And you just, I mean, it's flesh and stuff that I'm painting, but that's all you can sort of recognize, that it's vaguely a person in there.
Right.
And so,
yeah, you know the Matrix scene where they start playing house music.
yeah.
And then it becomes some big orgy.
Yeah.
Just darken the exposure limit on that shot.
Matrix Evolution, huge inspiration. But yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. Just like when you break it down, like, is that part actually the most interesting part of painting for me? It's like kind of me exploring my own sort of semi subconscious, like, paintings of like what do I actually like to paint and why.
Right.
Just trying to explore it for myself, trying to figure it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm really into them. And I mean, I'd like to see, I think you're like fleshing out ideas right now with it, and I think it's going to end up cool.
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, with this, does that end up helping your other art?
Yeah, I think it will eventually, because I'm trying to explore these techniques in a way where I'm like, it doesn't have to be too precise. Like there's like sort of an offshoot Painted Roses series I was doing too that was more abstract too. And I got to a point where I was like getting too caught up in the reference, and the reference looked crazy as hell too, but it was a lot more just layers of flowers. Like I took like actual photos of flowers and overlaid them rather than just working on a vintage rose pattern. And what's happening with that was that it was just like too complex, and I just wanted to figure out a way to still get the feeling, that like beauty feeling, but get more of these explorations of technique in there. And so that's something I put aside for a while, and I'm going to get around to once I've explored this new unnamed series.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I think eventually I think I'm just going to shed away the vintage rose pattern stuff, because after a certain point, there's only certain things that you can change within it, you just get to a point where it's like, all right, I've said everything I could say with this. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I got to with the last, like my mixed medium stuff. I was like, I think I've gotten as good as I can get, and I've painted the best painting I think I can with this. And then when I hit that point, I almost got lazy in a way, where I just wasn't. It was just like, I got this show I gotta like do artwork for, so I just do it. I'm like, I don't even like this fucking painting. Next, you know, and I'm just like, I need to not do this anymore. Like I'm done. So that's.
I went through that last year with a lot of my paintings I did for the Painted Roses stuff, where it was just autopilot, because it's just what I committed to. That's what the galleries wanted. So
and you just know exactly how to do it. It's like no mystery anymore.
Yeah,
there's no exploration.
That's the problem, having no mystery in it anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Even in the subject matter, having to spell out everything, just because that's just how I set up the concept to be.
Yeah, it's funny when you post stuff like that on social media. At least for me, I'll then say like, I'm not really happy with this, and then people get so offended, like, or like, oh, this came out horrible, and they then point it back to themselves and like, well, if this is bad, then what am I? Like, I don't know.
Terrible taste. Sorry to break it to you. But yeah, I try not to do that much anymore.
What? Self-deprecate?
Self-deprecate on my own paintings. I mean, I'll still do it a bit.
I do it all the time. I think to me, it's personally the most important part of my artwork. It's
really?
It's like, whenever anyone says like, well, what about me? I go like, yeah, you should hate your fucking work too.
Yeah.
Always hate your work, because if you loved your work, then you're pretty much stuck where you're at. Like, why would you even try to strive forward?
Right.
Like I'm always consistently picking my painting apart, even the ones I'm like, damn, this one came out great. Then I'm like, but I wish I don't want to touch it anymore, but I wish this part came a little better. I wish this was, it's like that to me is what makes me get better. And that's my only goal is to get better.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I try to hate if I wasn't really happy with the painting? Yeah. I should hate it. I mean, what the fuck? Like, and if you're asking what are you? I mean, you should be a person that hates your shit too.
Yeah. Well, the only time I do that these days so much anymore is when I go back and post up old paintings of mine, especially like, I think it was a couple of months ago that I posted up stuff that I did from like 2009 and 2010. And I went in and just wrote on the captions, like ripped on it a bit, like, look at this shitty technique.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy too. Cause when when you make a painting that you're really happy with, and then years later you look at it and you're like, whew. Yeah. It's just weird feeling.
That's the problem. Like that's why you don't big up yourself too much when you do it. Yeah. I never like pat myself too hard on the back when I finish a painting. I'll be like, I like this one right now. But that's about as much as I'll compliment my own work in the moment, because I just know how it's gonna look to me even in a few months.
I do get hyped on my paintings when I really like them. Like when I really like, because for the most part, if I really like a painting I did, like if I really, really like it, that might last a month before I'm over it.
Same here.
And, but so I kind of allowed myself that little like enjoyment of, because I think there are so few and far between that I'm actually that hyped on that when it happens, I'm like, yes, like this came out how I wanted to come out. Like even the random stuff I like did like subconsciously that tie into the message where I'm like, oh yeah, like I didn't even mean to do that, but it works perfect for what I'm trying to say or whatever.
Yeah.
For you narrative painters, Sergio unincluded.
Yeah. I'm just gonna sit over here.
In those cases, I definitely let myself enjoy that moment. But like the painting we're going to talk about today, about that is mine. I was really happy with how it came out, and I'm already like, oh man, I kind of want to like go over it one more time, one, but I'm not. But
yeah, we should just get into it.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. So the first podcast we did me and Sergio, and we did our origin stories. We both were born in a cave and became superheroes. Long story short,
we both love art school.
Yeah. We both love art school. Both born in an orphanage.
I thought you were going to say born in Oregon.
I already said we're born in a cave, so the orphanage was in a cave.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we reviewed one of Sergio's paintings that day, and the reason Sergio picked that painting was he kind of wanted to discuss painting a painting with the idea of trying to paint something beautiful, and that being the
like it doesn't have any other reason to exist other than just to be a beautiful painting, and being okay with that.
Right. And just, and we kind of discussed that painting and, versus like, having like a narrative to the painting or whatever, or some concept heavy, painting. So, today we're doing, my painting, which is much more narrative driven.
Do you have a title for it yet?
Yeah, God, let me see. I wrote it down. It is called Beyond the Watch, There Are Ways Out. So let me get comfortable. Sorry. So this late April, I'm having a show at Wonderland with 3 other artists, I believe, and so I'm doing a body of work, and I decided to do it around a Bukowski poem, Charles Bukowski. There's a poem called...
Are all the paintings around the poem?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool.
So the poem is called The Laughing Heart, and it's like as like this repetitive line of like your life is your life. And it's pretty much one of those like don't let life dictate what you do, and push forward and don't give a fuck. And there's like secrets out there. You just have to kind of like pay attention, and you'll be able to kind of be happy. And like there's lines like, I don't know, it's Bukowski, so like every line is like super impactful usually, like he so this line is beyond the watch there are ways out, and so I don't know if you want to kind of talk or say anything about it before I kind of break it down.
That was just my own curiosity. Is Bukowski somebody that like was an influence to you, or like you're a fan of?
Yeah, I used to be really into poetry, and when I was like younger, I would like write poems to each painting, which is kind of lame to me, like super lame to me now. But I have like a lot. I think like a lot of like he's pretty modern of a poet. There's a really modern poets that I really like Anis Mujgani and Bucky Wakefield. I don't know if that's his first name. I'm forgetting his first name, but yeah, they're like really great writers, and we're like, with poetry in general, I think like the idea is to like just make each line super impactful,
right?
And kind of like almost like it almost ends up being like a ton of them have cliches, or cliches are probably born out of poetry or some shit like that. But I think it kind of applies to artwork, where we're trying to take one image and instead of a movie where we get to spell everything out and say what we want to say, a painting is almost we have one sentence to explain what we want to say in that sort of way. And so I always connected to that part of poetry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bukowski's been like not a huge influence, but I just really like his work, and he's I don't know, he's definitely one of those like tainted souls who's like dark, and some poetry is lighthearted and others is like really intense, and I really like his stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Real asshole, seems like.
From what people have said about him, for sure.
He's also got like a really dark interview where he like,
oh yeah, the one where he's like yelling at his, was it wife or girlfriend or something? Yeah.
But
looks very emotionally healthy, that relationship.
But I like his writing a lot. Was that it? I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I was just letting you talk about Bukowski. But, I'm looking at it, and it is a thing that I like. I don't know if we talked about much on this podcast, but I've always liked a narrative that's sort of ambiguous, and that's kind of what I get from this picture, because you're looking at things. There's certain things happening in the painting that make you wonder why they're happening, like especially like they're like arrows or quills through her feet. And to me, that means like she's kind of stuck in her place, or somebody stuck her there. If somebody's shooting, like it doesn't look like she put herself there,
right?
In that way. And then it's almost like, and you look at her hair is these little geometric designs. Like she's got this polka dot pattern that make up her hair, and these little her hair is these almost fuzzy, I guess they almost look like spray, how a spray can makes a soft sort of circular line, and her hair almost looks like it's pieces of it are coming off of her hair and sort of flying away.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the way I interpret that is kind of like parts of herself sort of flying away out of her or away from her, or like it almost like symbolize time, or like people around her, like she's being left behind by whatever is happening around her life and people, things like that. That's just how I look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the background is pretty much just like these abstract textures, and you purposely left parts that look unfinished to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has these white like brush work around her that kind of partly delineate her from the background and are partly part of the background itself.
Right.
And so that's the part where I'm like, why is it left unfinished like that? Like what's the artist trying to tell us by the decisions he made in this painting? Like what about her and what's happening with her relates to the background and everything else going around with her. It's like it's not stuff that I like necessarily need to have answered, but the way that it makes me ask those questions, I find really interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the white, it's just visual for the most part. I mean, not except for her hair, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the title is Beyond the Watch, There Are Ways Out. So yeah, and so the poem, it kind of is almost speaking to a single person. So each painting is a different is a different model, but the idea was that they're experiencing that line at that moment. Hers being beyond the watch, there are ways out. So I had this idea that from the line that someone is trapped, and so I have these quills in her leg or in her feet to kind of trap her. It's just like the simplest way, at least for me, to say that without kind of going overboard. I feel like there's a million different ways you can make a person look trapped.
Right.
And then so the main thing I kind of wanted for this painting was for everything to make her want to move forward.
Right.
So if you look, the background, the horizon line is slanted, almost as if she's on a hill or something.
Okay.
And it's just slightly pushing her forward. And then I wanted her body to feel like it's kind of like her hips are a little bit exaggerated forward. And I want it to feel like she's leaning forward, but she can't really move. And her hair as well is just like pushing her forward. Like I wanted everything to tell her to go forward while she's trapped. And so the idea is that just the line of be on the watch, there are ways out. I just kind of love that idea. It just sounds like a prison break, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And
like the watch being like the watchtower kind of.
Yeah. And so I just wanted her to be, so the model is very much looking forward, and with the idea of like she's figuring things out or something.
Yeah. In the model there's definitely a sense of like, I don't know, anticipation or like yearning or something about that. Like,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't want it to be like a whole story or anything. It's almost just being stuck somewhere and wanting to move forward. And then I think with that, it kind of allows you to then take it and then make your own, from it. Is the whole idea is like, because for me, I really enjoy a concept that is just easily relatable to yourself. Like a lot of the concepts I work, or a lot of repeated concepts are the two concepts of getting lost and finding home. And I've always like painted paintings with those two titles, and it's just the simplest form of like, just everyone has gotten lost, pro or con, everyone has found home, good or bad, or been home, good or bad. It's like, and I've always enjoyed like trying to paint different versions of those two narratives. Or and I really like that. And there's like little things I'll add, either personal to me or just something I would find interesting about, just even discussing that with someone about getting lost and finding home, where they might mention something and I go, oh, that's cool. Like maybe I'll be able to sneak something into a painting that pertains to that one little thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I've with the Bukowski poem, there's a lot of concepts that are kind of similar to that. And this one being one of my favorites. This is actually the first painting I did for the group. And it was just because that was the one I was most excited to work on at first. So yeah, it's I just enjoy the idea of kind of everything pushing you forward while you're stuck in a place and wanting to get out of that place. And then the hopeful thing being that there is a way out of it. You just have to like really like figure it out. And I mean, I think that's a pretty relatable concept.
Oh yeah, for sure. As you're saying that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see how that applies to my life in some ways.
Yeah, and I'm sure to like anyone listening, it's like, even if you're not trapped now, you could easily look back and go like, oh yeah, like that's the kind of like narrative or concept or whatever you want to call it that I like to add to a painting, is just like, I don't want to tell a story about like a rabbit that went down a hole.
Yeah.
I mean, this has nothing to do with Glenn Arthur's.
Oh, shots at Glenn Arthur.
That just happened. I was like, oops, that's not what I meant at all. But I mean, I kind of like the idea to be a big relatable idea, and then within that I might add things, but that's just for me in that scenario. Like
right.
Like if I add something, I'm not trying to have people go like, oh, is this from your childhood? It's just me adding my little bit of myself to my painting.
Right.
But it's really just like, this story is about a person trapped who's trying to get out and is very focused on doing so. And you can, I want it to feel like she's not like looking down at her feet. She's looking forward, and she's, trying to work towards that. And there's also like a couple quills behind her. Yeah. And that with the idea of like, there might have been someone else in that same spot kind of thing.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't want to do too much. I might add one more quill somewhere, but yeah, so that's it. That's the majority of what that painting means.
Yeah, that's awesome.
99%. Yeah.
Well, that's cool to know that about your work. Like, if people want to go back and look at your work and think of it in those terms, they can be like, oh, okay, I could see how that relates to that concept.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool in that way. That is kind of a neat thing to learn about when we've been talking to our past guests. Like, a lot of the times they have like some certain overarching theme to their work, and to go back and look at it in that context, it's like, oh yeah, that makes it that much more interesting of a painter.
Yeah, like when Josh May started talking about space, I was like, holy shit. I was like, so much of your work makes so much sense now.
Right, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, I really do enjoy that. Even just personality wise, you meet some of our guests, and their personalities, I feel like very much match their artwork.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, in a way, I think everybody's does in a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But what you're saying about like, I think that's what I like about having a more ambiguous narrative. It's just when somebody goes like a more overt thing, it's usually because they have like a specific story they want to tell. Right. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that for me. I mean, I like a lot of movies that have like a beginning, middle, and end sort of thing too. So it's nothing against, like, it's just not the way that I personally like to make my art.
Yeah. And for me, I don't think it's the best delivery system for doing that. Like,
yeah.
I think it's like writing, it kind of goes back to like a movie versus a painting and a novel versus a poem.
Right.
It's like if I hear a poem, I want it to, a lot of times the poetry I like aren't necessarily like a beginning, middle, and end, even though this poem it's based off of kind of is that way. But, but it's much more of like, I don't know, it's more like of a segment of something rather than a whole idea of something, which I think is
right.
Or a concentrated idea that then you get to fill in the blanks or whatever. And I don't know. I think, I guess you could probably have a show where you did a whole, I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing right now is like I'm telling a story through a group of paintings. But even then it's, when you look at it, you're probably not going to get that,
Yeah.
I did a group of shows, or I did a show with a group of paintings where they each one represented a house I lived in.
Oh, right. Yeah. I remember that show.
And that one, if you looked at it, you can kind of see that it was like, I tried to make it where it was like innocence, and then like, teenage years were like a lot darker in my life, and then the idea was like it progressively got better, and then at the very end it was more like I don't know where the fuck it goes from here, so kind of like I had a girl covering her face and just saying like and that was like the painting, because they all had like a cluster explaining the ideas, and then the last one was just a single painting with a girl covering her eyes like, well, we'll see where this leads, type of deal.
Yeah.
And in that, it's kind of a story, but it's still not the best delivery system. I mean,
right. Yeah.
I don't know. So it goes back to art. I think the majority of art usually touches a person without the background story being involved. At least when you first look at something, it ends up being like the beauty of it or the whatever of it,
right.
The darkness or whatever you want to call it, is much more what draws you in. And then, if there's a narrative behind, maybe then you get to like pick it apart and stuff. But, I think you have to have like it has to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye in some way,
right?
Good or bad, or dark or gruesome or whatever people are into. But it has to pull someone in before they commit some time to trying to figure out what the fuck this means without, in the not the best delivery system.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the struggles for me, like when it comes to that sort of thing. And again, back to being a more ambiguous narrative, I think it just lends itself more to, or painting lends itself more to a if you're going to tell a story with it. I mean, you can do a comic book if you want to do like tell a story in pictures, like actual in a novel way.
Right.
But if you're just doing a painting, it's like you're saying, the story, if you're going to tell a story in one picture, it's better to have a story that lends itself to be told in that way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. All right, so we did that.
Yeah.
If you guys want to see the painting, I mean, I've already posted it a bunch of times. I don't know if I'll repost it. I guess I will.
I'll post on the Waiting to Dry Instagram.
So look at Waiting to Dry and follow us if you haven't. And tell your friends and family. That's probably something we should do.
Share with your buddies. Yeah.
If there's anyone you'd find interested, think this would interest.
But for real though, if you know somebody who would like this podcast, might as well share with them.
Yeah, we're just being sarcastic so that we don't have to be authentic.
Be sincere with a wink and a nod.
But yeah, so that's my painting.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it gives me more to to look at when I look at your art too. So that's awesome in that way too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never know. I think we've talked about it before, where sometimes people will come at me and they'll ask me a question. I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, you're good. Like, you saw that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then, but for the most part, I get the like, oh, this is great painting, and I'm always like, thank you. So yeah, if you come at me with ideas of what my art means, and then I feel like at least then you committed some time to thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worse when I'm like going through the motions and the painting doesn't mean much. Like that's kind of what I was doing with the other cell when I was kind of getting stagnant. I just ended up painting stuff. People are like, oh, does this mean? I'm like, I don't know. What does anything mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. I mean, so Jim Carrey, I saw some video about him being an artist, and I mean, I feel like I love a part of Jim Carrey. Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Great movie.
In living color.
Color.
Fire Marshal Bill.
Yeah. Me, Myself, and Irene. Yeah. Ace Ventura. We can go down the list. Great.
Vera DeMilo for you deep cut fans.
But yeah, I feel like for the last couple years, Jim Carrey has gone down this celebrityism where they slowly start losing their fucking mind, and they end up becoming a religion. Is how I always think of it.
Right.
They say like these weird wonky like statements as facts, which always drives me up the wall.
Yeah.
And Jim Carrey, he's been kind of doing that, which I mean, that doesn't mean I don't agree with some of what Jim Carrey says. But I don't know, the way he says things as fact, it drives me nuts. And, but yeah, so he's also kind of been pursuing art, which is perfectly fine. I have no beef with anyone trying to become an artist. And obviously, when you're as big as a name as Jim Carrey, you get a fast forward pass to art world as you want.
Yeah.
And I think it's always great when someone who's not that talented at something gets the fast forward past the rest of the people who've been really pursuing something and trying really hard to get technically good and also be the best. So
you must be a big fan of SoundCloud rappers.
Huge fan. Yeah. That 6ix9ine guy who's coming around.
Yeah.
Huge fan. His songs, yeah, that's right. I can't. I love them all. I must love them all. But yeah, so Jim Carrey, and he's got those like weird gimmicky things like I strap myself and lay like I'm flying, so I paint while I'm
right.
I'm like, all right, cool, man. There's plenty of artists who are guilty of gimmicky type things, which is whatever.
Right.
Shout out to gimmicky artist. But yeah, so I think Jim Carrey's kind of, at least he's the one artist, actor, celebrity I know of right now.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other ones out there.
I mean, the other one I thought about was like George Bush. It's like parallel thinking of like he started doing art later on in life.
Actually, George Bush is like the opposite. Like I love that George Bush does art. I'm like, please don't do anything else. Right.
If you hear the tip tapping of his paws, that's what you just heard.
But yeah, George Bush. I'd much prefer him doing that than anything in the political realm.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Little puppy dogs. I love it. Smoke your weed or whatever you're doing.
Whatever he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Jim Carrey also, I mean, he can paint all he wants, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the jealousy of an artist who's committed so much time to be like, what the fuck? How is he getting this much attention for his artwork when it's not great?
Right. Yeah. And that's part of what annoyed me about what was been happening this week, and what made me even want to bring it up as a topic was, he's been getting into doing these like political cartoons, basically, of, and so somebody on my Facebook posted a link to his latest series of cartoons, and especially the one of was it Sarah Huckabee?
Right. Yeah, it's been getting like a ton of attention.
Right. Yeah. And when they put it in, they were like, you know, I really like his art. You know, it might what do you say? It might not be very good technically. I was like, I don't even really like it that much as a piece of art, but like, I like the passion behind it, and all that stuff. It's like, oh, isn't passion like really what art is about? It kind of went into that sort of thing,
right?
And I looked at my thoughts about it were just like, I mean, sure it's passionate, like he's really politically passionate apparently, right? So that's kind of what, but the art doesn't go any further deep than these little these insults of anyone in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and it's not even, I mean, it's the easiest thing to be fucking anti-Republican.
Exactly.
Right,
yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it's a secret that we take little shots at Trump and his gang of people,
right,
every once in a while, but like. To base your art around that is the easiest thing, I think. It's like, who the fuck isn't mad at this crazy man at the at the wheel?
Right.
It's like, okay, great, but I mean, and I don't know. It's a great. He would be great as one of those people who draw caricatures on the wharf.
Right.
He nails it. Like, he really got the likeness of Sarah Huckabee. I will admit that. I'm like, wow. I mean, that was the most impressive part. Was like, oh, I could tell that's Sarah Huckabee. That's kind of cool that he can do that.
Right.
You know, because I didn't expect that from Jim Carrey. But at the same time, as a professional artist, or I don't even know what you would call Jim Carrey or whatever, but
right.
As a person pursuing artwork, I would assume if you're going to be painting a caricature of a person, you would be able to get their likeness in some way. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad sketcher at all. Like, I look at some of the stuff, it's like, oh, you got some perspective down. It's cool. But yeah, it's just a thing where it's like, to me, the way I look at his art, it's like, it's almost like if you took like a 17-year-old and gave him all the money in the world and be like, you get to do art. Or like, he's like a really passionate artist in that way, but like both in his like technical abilities and like the depth of his concept. Like, we've been sitting here talking about the concepts of our own work, like how seriously we think about it. And for somebody like him, it's just like, to me, it's somebody who, it has the feeling of somebody who just started pursuing art as a
not only
passion.
that, but like, how does that prove you're passionate? It's like okay, so if I have a limited amount of money and I'm pursuing art now, how is that passionate? How am I sacrificing anything?
Right.
I have no worries of money at all. Like, how is that more passionate than the artist who is trying to survive off of their art? Like, how is that more passionate than that? Like, how is that more passionate than the person who commits hours upon hours upon hours to get good at their craft, and to deliver the best piece of artwork while not making shit for what they're doing? and somehow Jim Carrey, he's more passionate because he's a successful celebrity and he's taking his time out to paint. It's like, that's not passion to me. That's like, I mean, anyone can pick up a paintbrush with a fucking shitload of money and be like, this is what I'm into now. I mean, and you have the world at your fingertips. So you get to do that. That's
that was part of what was bothering me about it, because people were talking about like, oh, he gave up his art, his movie career. It's like, not really, because he can just go back to doing movies whenever he wants.
Yeah, and like he hasn't been the greatest of movie. He hasn't had the greatest of movie career lately.
Yeah, that too.
The movies we named were what, like
from the 90s. Yeah,
yeah, so
it's like we're giving him a pass because we have these nostalgia. He gets all this nostalgia cred.
Side note: Eternal Sunshine Spotless Mind, fucking classic.
I mean, it is good.
And movie. I love that movie. So I mean, one from early 2000s, but the rest from the 90s. Just suck it, Jim. I don't know. We've kind of been talking enough shit about Jim Carrey. Kind of gone. I feel like I'm just waking up from like, I think I went too far. I mean, he's just a rich guy trying to paint. Let him paint. I mean, the only thing I kind of get annoyed about is more than his painting is just him and how he talks about, like he's been on the news recently about being like, we don't exist. We're all like, you know, no one is no one. Who is Jim Carrey? Jim Carrey is nothing. And which is perfectly fine if you want to believe whatever you want to believe. I just get annoyed with when people have thought of this, who have built up these beliefs in their mind, and all of a sudden it's, my thing is fact, and you're like, so what's the difference between you and a cult leader right now, Jim Carrey? Like, seriously, you haven't proven shit. You're not a scientist. So go ahead and like prove your theories or whatever you have. If not, then you're just spouting off things you believe as fact. And to me, that's like, that gets under my nails more than his artwork, which also I'm not a fan of. I'm not gonna lie.
But you touched on that whole thing. It's like, believe it or not, like agree with him or not, it's, to me, that whole process of thinking about the world is way more interesting than his political cartoons. Like if his art had anything to do with some of that, like the thing that it sounds like he's a lot more passionate about, well, maybe he's passionate about like just spouting off about Republicans, but like to me, the subject matter of like getting into self and what that means, letting go of your ego and all that, it seems to me a more worthwhile discussion in art. So that part of it is like let's see what he does when he's actually for real sort of exploring himself through his art.
I think he has been. I just am not a big fan of that either.
Yeah, I just don't think he's gone deep in it. I mean, I'm not a big fan of any of his art either, but yeah, I mean, that's just what my...
And one of the other things that got under my like I got me annoyed about the Sarah Huckabee doodle was, he was like, and she claims she's a Christian, and you're like, and like as a person who grew up in a Christian family and pretty hardcore, I read a good, the Bible very regularly and went to church 3 times a week and at the least, and so I know the Bible pretty well, and it's just like any religion, you can make it whatever the fuck you want. So she can be a shitty person all she wants because that religion has plenty of shitty people in its books. I mean, you can break any rule in that book and still be pretty cool. I mean, so, and this is pre and post Jesus, whatever. So it's like, I don't know. It's this idea of like, oh, and she claims she's a Christian. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what knowledge do you have as far as what that means, Jim? I mean, maybe he has a shit ton of knowledge, but have you read that book much? Because there's a shit ton of darkness in there, and a bunch of people did some dirt, and and I mean, we talked about with Monty where David from David and Goliath, he stole some dude's wifey and was like, "That's my lady now." It's like, okay, and it was very much seen as property and all that stuff, and that's like David, the forefather of Jesus, and that was their pure bloodline that they did, and you're like, all right, so okay, a bunch of bullshit,
right?
So yeah.
Well, I think we trashed Jim Carrey enough now at this point.
Also, Sarah Huckabee, you can go suck a dick or not.
Suck a bee.
Actually, don't do either. I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, I hate Sarah.
Time to hit the edit bay.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you edit that out? But yeah. Yeah. Sarah, let me restart that. Sarah Huckabee, fuck off. But yeah. 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 Sarah Huckabee, if you're still listening, fuck off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know. I don't know. I wish he was good at art. I mean, that's the biggest issue with that, really, is like, if someone's decent at art, I'm like, in the celebrity, like Kanye West, I've seen some of like his old art stuff. I'm like, holy shit. He
really?
can, like, actually do some shit.
Huh.
Yeah. He went to art school. And he was like an up and coming young artist, before he went to art school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
He did like similar to like photorealist type stuff. I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know how good it is. Like I might look at it and I'm like, maybe it's not that great.
Might have that Picasso effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's actually got some talent. And I was like, oh fuck, Kanye West can actually doodle. I'm sure there's some others that are pretty talented at art as well. But
probably. I think that there's a lot of performers that dabbled in art or visual arts.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to hate on a celebrity because they're doing art, but more like if you're doing art and you're gaining art celebrity for being a celebrity and doodling instead of being any kind of talented.
Right.
Which I don't think he is. And I've heard so many people talk about his art as if it's good. I'm like, okay, cool, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I had to bring it up too, because it made it into my sphere as well.
Yeah. They're like, oh, have you seen Jim Carrey paints? Yeah, like, he's pretty good too. Oh, is he? Oh, is he? What, did you go to one wine and paint class and now you're a fucking art critic? Get away from me, Mom. But yeah. So what else do we have to talk about? Oh yeah.
So yeah, this will be probably pretty quick, but I thought this was pretty cool. So this whole thing makes me happy to live in California because I guess there
other than us saying hella all the time.
Yeah, makes me hella proud of being in California because like in other parts of the country, things like you can still totally pollute your waterways and be totally all right with doing that.
Shout out to Texas and Florida.
And Ohio in this case. So this is pretty cool that I thought this guy, John Sabra, has come up with this Kickstarter, and it's actually through, I think, a partnership with Gambling Paints.
Nice.
And so what they're doing is, so when they do these, I guess, coal mine pollution, they do this, all this acid and iron gets into the water, and what they're doing with it is recycling this water. And I think if you scroll down, it'll show a little bit more like the diagrams of how it works. Okay. So yeah, so it looks like when it goes into the river, it just looks like I mean, it's colorless when it gets into the river and pollutes it. So what they have to do is neutralize it because it's completely acidic. The drain that's coming out of the factories there, but even though it looks like water, it's full of iron, and
right.
And so what you can do with that iron, though, if you process it, is you can make it into different types of pigments for oil paints or anything really, but for our purposes, oil paints. So yeah, they go through this process where they basically filter out the iron, and they take the iron, and to get it to different colors, they just make it into different or they heat it at different temperatures. Like the higher the temperature you go, the more purple it gets.
Right.
And so what they're doing is like Gambling is taking this stuff into their factory and processing it like any other pigment. And Yeah, you get some sludge in a jar if you want. But yeah. So there's the different types of pigments, like iron oxide is what typically, I think, synthetic versions of like yellow ochre is made from iron oxide. So people are already using this stuff as paint. But like if you change the temperature that you bake it at, you get these pretty awesome different colors from it. And so I guess Gamblin's tubing it now and calling it reclaimed earth violet. I think it's a pretty cool idea for recycling.
Yeah, shout out to Gamblin.
Yeah, they're pretty environmentally conscious, that company.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought some people might think that's interesting. Put it on their radar.
For sure. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, anytime you can save the environment just a little bit, it helps. You know? So go out there and pick up trash, kids.
Yeah.
But
put acid on everything. See what you get out of it.
Well, they're probably putting sodium hydroxide on.
Yeah. It's actually a base. Yeah.
Neutralize the acid. And then that's cool. But yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So go check it out. I definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, they have a little video they can watch of how they do it and everything. Yeah.
That's cool. I'd like to play with those colors, see what I come up with. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it looks similar to this pigment. I think it's called what is it? It's like Italian red or something like that, and it's hardly a red at all. Or I forget what it is. It's some weird color that it has a primary in the name, but it's brownish pink, and you pick it up thinking it's going to be a red. But
hey guys, it's Sergio coming in after the podcast. So I looked it up, and it's Italian pink, and it looks like a brown. It's not pink at all. What the fuck, Italy? Get it together. All right, back to the show.
Pour it out on your palette, and it's totally not the color you expected it to be.
So you get angry and you throw something.
You demand a refund. Head back to your local art store.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I thought that'd be an interesting thing for people to check out.
Yeah.
But one little thing that I wanted to get into is so it's been no secret to anybody listening that Josh is very deficient in his art history knowledge.
Who, me?
No, I meant Josh Mays. No. Or Josh, Glenn's boyfriend.
Wait, are you going to force me to go to school right now?
But what I wanted to do is just real quickly bring up some names. There's people that get brought up a lot as far as and we'll just power through that. His snores for all you youngsters who need some learning to. But yeah, Sorolla is one of those guys who gets brought up a lot in terms of painters who influence a lot of contemporary artists. He was around.
Never heard of him.
He's like contemporary of John Singer Sargent and people around that time period. And he was a Spanish painter. Painted. I think he painted mostly along the coasts of Spain.
How good was his paella?
You know, it's the stuff of legends.
I mean, his artwork's cool, but how was his paella? You said Spanish, right?
Yeah. Sure, he was a great winemaker as well. But
did he have a lisp? You know,
yeah, probably. I think he painted that.
He painted that lisp.
Yeah, he painted the king or whoever it was that had that lisp that made I don't know. I could be totally wrong with that, so I'm going to shut up.
Was it a king that made?
Yeah, the king had the lisp, the Spanish king,
and so he
made everybody else speak like him.
What?
So that they would. So he, I guess, like feels not as subconscious about it.
That is hilarious. Kings seem to be real assholes back in the day.
For sure.
There's a lot of people humping beaches, which is cool.
So we're going to torture you if you don't believe in Jesus, and we're going to make you speak with a lisp.
And I got all the golds.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
So yeah, the neat thing about Sorolla was like how much he painted from life was his. He would go out with these giant easels and canvases and paint a lot of these as sketches. He made a lot of these big paintings as studies.
wow. So wait.
So he'd go out on the beach and like he had like this really crazy tent sort of thing set up where he just blocked the wind.
Okay, I was just gonna ask about that because every painting is like someone in wind.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, wait, how the fuck did he set up pallets?
Yeah. No, I was always curious about that too because if anybody's ever gone out to the coast to paint, like the wind is probably your biggest obstacle out there.
Or just eat a sandwich.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. I remember one time I went to go paint in Monterey at the dunes out there, and I didn't even have my easel. I just had my paint box with me, and so one of the ideas was that I was going to paint looking at the beach, and then another painting looking opposite toward the hills. And so I did the painting of the beach, and that was okay because the wind was shielding the canvas or the easel that I had it on was sort of a shield for the canvas. As soon as I turned around, though, there's no shield. So I think I might still have that painting somewhere. And
a lot of texture.
Yeah, it looked like sandpaper by the time I was done with that painting.
Hilarious. Yeah, I have a similar story. Once I was trying to eat a Togo sandwich on the beach.
Yeah,
and I ate sandpaper with bologna and pooped out a marble sculpture. So
bologna, gross.
Bologna's just pig assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, what was his name again?
Joaquin Sorolla.
I forget. What was that again?
So Rolla. And
but yeah, I'm familiar with some of his work. I'm just horrible at names. I think I've got somewhat of art history. Like where's that? This one's like really well known, isn't it?
I think so. I mean,
yeah, I've seen that one for sure before.
I'm not sure exactly which ones are more well known than others. I know the one where it's the women sewing the big sail or something at the very top. That's one of his more famous ones. Yeah.
This one here?
Yeah. I mean, it's as far as I know, it's a big painting. And, I went
Maybe they were making him a tent.
Yeah, for his paintings. Yeah, for his plein air work. But yeah, I just find him to be pretty inspirational. Not only is he an amazing painter, great color and everything, but his dedication to like I don't care. I'm gonna go out and paint 30 by 40s.
Yeah, that's cool.
And something I'm still not.
This shadow on this lady's dress reminded me of something. You see how he put the blues in the shadows? Today or this week and last week, I've been training this guy at my job to take over for me I'm transitioning to a different job. And this guy is colorblind. And it was interesting because when you do like landscapes, I don't do landscapes, but I'll notice like the blues in the hills, especially in the shadows and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
And I was telling him like, oh yeah, it's always crazy because I forget he's colorblind, and we'll talk about art or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, you know how you see like the blues in the shadows of the mountains.
Oh yeah.
And he gave me this weird look of confusion. I'm like, what? And he's like, because he could see some colors, like he's not like a black and white or something like that. So I forget what I know. You can see greens, but he has trouble.
People, red green color blindness is pretty common.
Yeah, he has trouble with blues a lot.
Okay,
especially the darker ones. He has trouble with like pastel colors in general. Like most pastel colors, he's pretty much just not gonna see that well.
Right.
So yeah, it was crazy to think about that because I was explaining to him. And so I ended up showing him a landscape of yours. So I was like, yeah, you see the blue in the hills. And he was like, no.
Oh, that's funny.
And then so I then looked up one of your landscapes and I found one with blue in the shadows. I was like, yeah, you see the blue in the shadow there, right? And I feel like it was like pretty blue. And he was like, that looks green. And then
weird.
I zoomed in so that it was almost just the blue. And I was like, what does that look like? And he's like, well, there's little dots of blue, but most of it's green. And I'm like, I don't know what you see, man.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, that was one of those weird, it's one of those like, just like, I don't know, stoner or something kind of conversations, even though I don't smoke weed or anything, but it's just like, you just start talking about what each person perceives and how do you know blue is blue to you and me and, those kind of conversations where you just go into like, how do we know that your color is the same color that I see when I see whatever I see. Yeah,
that's true.
But yeah, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what that blue shadow, because we just talked about it this week or like 2 days ago. And I was like,
that's a fun story.
But yeah, and then I talked to him about just kind of like the colors you see in people's skins. Like I was like, like skin color, you see like, I don't know, like you get like purples in some areas and, greens in other areas. And he just was so confused and I was like, I don't know.
Well, I think also like, unless you're trained to see it kind of like people might see it and they don't even realize they're seeing it until you point it out to them.
Exactly. And that's what I was trying to do. But since he was colorblind, it was even more like, I don't know why I'm talking to you about this.
You see grays and and other grays.
Yeah. But like skin tone, you mean like peach?
Yeah. What do you see when you look at a vein if you don't see blue then?
That's what I told him. I actually pointed to my vein and he said that he couldn't see it.
Oh,
like
wow.
You have some veins that pop up and then there's some that are just like in the skin. And I was like, do you see my vein there? And he couldn't see it. He's like, I just see skin. I'm like, that's so weird that you can't see that.
Yeah, that is weird.
And so, then I tried to show him a painting I just recently did where there was like a subtle vein in the eye. Like on your eyelid, people will have veins if their skin is kind of like thinner or paler or whatever. And so I painted that and I was like, do you see the vein there? And he's like, it looks like a little darker because it's a slightly darker tone than the skin tone. And I was like, do you see that? And he's like, it just looks slightly darker. And I'm like, yeah, that's the vein. And he's like, huh. And I'm like, and that's how it looks when I look at my hand. And he's like, really? I'm like, oh, I can't even comprehend what you see, man.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Do you know any colorblind artists?
Yeah, Mike Giant.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Mike Giant.
Yeah, because it does seem like the artists who work in black and white, they're more likely to be colorblind.
Yeah, he talks about it a lot. He's because when he did graffiti, he'd always work in color.
Oh.
And I always thought that was crazy and he talks about it because you'll look at some of his graffiti work and it's very obvious. It's like, why would you ever work in those colors? And he's said it, he's like admitted it before he doesn't know, but his friends will tell him like, that shit is stupid looking. Like those colors are horrific.
That reminded me of this illustrator from the 50s, Robert Fawcett. He's an amazing draftsman, but he was colorblind, but there was still a lot of like demand for color work. So he'd work in these like ink dyes. You look at some of those colors and you're like, yeesh. But like he's such a good draftsman that you just look at it, you could just reproduce it in black and white and it looks awesome just because they're like cool drawings.
Right. Yeah. Or just have someone do some washes over.
Yeah, that's
drawings. Like, hey buddy, can you just point me in the right direction?
Yeah. He probably had somebody helping him maybe a little bit with that, hopefully. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a weird one. I'd be more impressed if you were an artist that was blind though, and painting really well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was gonna say, not to bring it back to Jim Carrey, but maybe an excuse. Just kidding.
But yeah, I think that's, I don't know how long we've been going.
I think we're about done anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost at 2 hours.
Nice. So,
Sweet.
So yeah, what do you got planned for the week?
For the week coming up, I don't know, just same old, working on art. All right.
Cool. So you paint and work and sleep and eat and poop and anything else you doing? Drink water, shower.
I mean, we're keeping it PG, I guess. But yeah, same old, same old.
Yeah. Watching. Yeah. Stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. This is super exciting what we're talking about now. You guys are super. Oh yeah, we did have some questions. Did we even hit those?
Yeah. There was a guy who asked me about Plein Air events. I don't know. Do we have time for that?
We could make it short.
Yeah, I can.
You don't have to go into depth.
Let's
just go through it real quick.
What did
There
you say?
might be other questions as well. All right, so Premier Coop, I would like to hear Sergio's thoughts on plein air festivals. Are they worth it? Pros, cons. Are there good ones? Wait.
What are the good ones?
What
Okay.
are the good ones, etc.?
Yeah. I've done plein air festivals for about 8 years now at this point.
I figure we should probably do this because we keep asking people for questions and then we just dodge the questions.
I know. So I just forget by the time we get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get self-absorbed. Just ignore everybody else. Want to yammer on. But anyways,
if I knew the question was towards Sergio, I'd probably just skip this.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Let's see. Yeah, plein air festivals. I've mostly done the ones here on the West Coast because that's where I live, and it's California, so it's sunny a lot of the time. So that's when they're usually happening. Mm-hmm. And I've done just about any one that has a reputation for being a good event, and they're kind of what you make of them. Like, you don't go into them. Well, at first when I started them, I thought they were going to be like, oh yeah. You just paint for a week and people come and buy all your paintings, and that usually doesn't happen. I think it's just kind of oversaturated at this point. Not only have they been doing them year after year, so the same places, like even the people who would have bought a painting probably bought one when they, like, for the last 5 years or so that they've been doing them.
Right.
So these days I look at plein air events as like, I go there if I want to paint the place, because most likely I'm going to come home with that painting. So it might as well be of something I want to hold on to or do something with. So
when you do a plein air event, you go there and paint that area?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it was like where plein air is meant to. I have no idea, to have orgies and show off their landscapes of their area. It'd be like, look at my cool ass Santa Rosa, and someone else is like, look at my cool ass, I don't know, some other place.
Right. Yeah, they have one here in Sonoma County, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been doing that one off and on for a few years.
Nice. How are the orgies there?
The best.
Okay, that's good.
That's all wine, so that helps loosen people up.
Nice.
Yeah, they need to do a Vegas plein air. That would be an orgy.
What happens in plein air Vegas?
Yeah. So I guess the ones that are worth doing for me personally, the ones that I like to do around here are the Sonoma one that we just mentioned.
That would be cool to see the Sonoma one because of what you mentioned, how all the hills are kind of
right.
This weird purpley tone or whatever to them.
Right, totally. Yeah, so, I wonder how it will look in the summer, because that's when it happens. It actually happens in
all the
early
trees.
fall.
All the trees are still going to be black as fuck.
Yeah.
The ground is probably going to be green by then, but the tree or yellow by then. Probably.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The grass is the only thing that's really recovered. Yeah. Everything else is still pretty burnt out.
Yeah.
Especially like if you go around like the Hood Mountain area around here, where it's mostly still like granite or whatever kind of rock is in the in the hills where it's just the rock and not much other vegetation.
Right.
It looks the same as when it did in like November.
Oh, I thought you were going to say dinosaur times.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's see. So Sonoma's a good one. I mean, there aren't that many good ones left anymore, actually.
How dare you? They're all great. Don't you dare talk about my Plein Air festival.
The master of plein air, Joshua Lawyer.
That's what I'm known for.
Yeah. There's ones that I like to do because I like the people that I end up going up to hang out with when I do them. Like the one that I do in Hood River up in Oregon over near Portland. I made a lot of friends up there in my years of going up there. So friends of mine, we get together and it's become like just like a kind of a outing for us. The last few years we've been just renting a bunch of campsites and just making it like week-long party in that way. Like
Right.
we don't give a shit about selling the artwork because it's probably not going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's for me. It's like number one, is it nearby? Number two, is it fun? And number three, does it have a reputation? That's like my order of will I do that event or not?
And what happens there? Does it stay there?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So then Craig Williams asked maybe something of how to tackle IG if you if you are a late starter to the community. And
Be
advice
a good
for new
artist
artists.
so people want to share your work.
And
Like
advice. He also-
hashtags are also pretty good for that.
Yeah. I mean, I've not that. I don't know. I thought I was late to Instagram, but I feel like I was kind of in a decent spot when it started.
No, I think you were good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got in before they changed the algorithm. That's the thing that really
Yeah.
fucked up a lot of
Yeah. I mean,
people's-
but there's been some people I've seen who've grown huge amount of followers, like within a short amount of time recently.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea how to do that, or else I would do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cracking that algorithm or whatever it is to get followers. I have no idea how to do it. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's a matter of getting reposted by the right people at this point.
yeah, you hear the same thing over and over. Post regularly. Make sure to hashtag. Make sure to try to build dialogue with your followers. Try to reach out to artists you like and communicate with them.
Have them on your podcast.
On your podcast. Yeah.
But I mean, all that stuff actually works. It's just it's not as fast as you hope it
Yeah,
would.
it's a grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been posting much new work on my Instagram lately, and it's kind of stagnating my Instagram, but I'm not too worried about it. Nobody's dropping away. You're just not thinking about me as much.
Yeah. He also said, any advice for new artists on making cells, maybe something about process you guys go through when designing a painting?
Well, the second part of that is kind of what we got into with our...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do specifically based on the concept you... So for me, I try to, the figure's pose is usually based off the idea behind the painting.
Yeah.
So I go like concept, and then how do I deliver the pose? How does the model deliver what I'm trying to say with her pose?
Mm-hmm.
And then also with for me, it's like facial expression is very important as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes pose, facial expression,
Mm-hmm.
and then I usually have a loose idea of the background, and then that always comes last for me. I don't know if...
It depends on for me, it depends on what I'm doing. It could go one way or the other. Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about that without having an example to pick from. But I did that more when I was doing like more illustrative work. I definitely took all that stuff into account.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I don't know if that helps at all, Craig. But yeah. And then Ozzy said, Suck it, losers. Yeah, he just said sarcastically, I'd be interested in hearing about both of your personal life philosophies and how, or even if it pertains to the type of artwork that you create.
And I said for him to go back to his episode 1 notes, you asshole. You motherfucker.
So there you go, Ozzy. I think that was all our questions.
Yeah, I think that'll do it.
So did Josh solo shoot first? Nate Van Dyke asked. I don't know what that means.
Oh, it's did Han shoot first? Who's the guy he shot in the thing in the
the newest one?
No, I think it was in the first or episode 4 or 5, if we want to be accurate.
Okay.
When they were in the bar, whatever, and he shoots the guy.
Oh, right. Yeah, because it kind of looks like he just shot a random guy for no reason.
And there was a controversy because like George Lucas wanted to change it that the other guy tries to shoot him first or something like that.
Yeah, well, that guy owed me fucking money.
Yeah.
So, answer solved. You pay up or you die, says Josh Solo.
Josh Solo.
All right, well, that's the episode. We've been rambling on for too fucking long.
Yep.
If you guys are still listening, fuck off.